Welcome to No Life Till Lager, a show about lager beer, the brewers who make it, and we that drink it. This is a conversation between four people over one or two pints. My name is Adam Zuniga. I'm a failed master Cicerone. I'm part of the creative team behind the 6 Most Metal Breweries and Beer Like in Das Movie. And my guests today are Nick Meyer, owner and founder, Adam Wolfe, head brewer, Justin Sirois, operations and sales manager. That is at Eckhart Beer Company in Brooklyn, New York. I am so happy to be back in New York City. Cheers and welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for
nice to be here.
Oh, thank you for joining No Life Till Lager. There are many firsts on this episode. First time we've met. First time I've had your beer. First time we've ever had 3 guests at once, but I'm guessing we have a lot in common, a lot of friends in common, a lot of shared experiences. I heart New York City. I love New York. I think next to beer itself, New York is the great love of my life. And I think it's the best city in the world to drink beer. So it is a match made in heaven. And you are doing both. I lived there for over a decade. I managed sales for 6 Point for a large part of that. I don't think I fully realized it at the time, but it gave me the keys to the city. It gave me the keys to Brooklyn. It made New York like the biggest little town in the world. And what seemed overwhelming at first felt very personal. I could no longer walk down the street anymore without seeing a familiar face. That's what New York means to me. That's what beer means to me. And you're giving me every reason to come back and visit. So thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, please come back.
Yeah. You don't even have to ask, but by the end of this episode, I guarantee it. So before we talk about you, before we talk about the brewery, before we talk more about New York, can you tell me about the beers in each of our hands? So I am drinking your Czech style dark lager, clocks in at 4.7% alcohol. Dark lagers are also a great love of my life. So thank you for a very handsome box of beer. I guarantee you I'm going to drink every single can. Tell me about this beer and tell me about what you're drinking, please, before we go.
Adam, and why don't you take it away on sort of talking through these beers?
Sure. So you're drinking the Czech dark lager here now. That is kind of inspired by Prague and Ufleku, the brewery out there. We all love this style very much, so we definitely want to make it a kind of a core range beer for us. It's got Agnes hops in it, which is we all did a kind of a sniff and rub about a year ago and came across this hop and fell in love with it. It has this beautiful kind of menthol minty resin vibe to it. It still is super noble and has that awesome Czech expression. So we wanted to express that all the way throughout this beer. It's definitely one of my favorite styles, so I love brewing this beer. I don't know if you guys want to speak anything else on it, but yeah, definitely one of my favorites.
So fitting for the time of year, but fitting all year. I can drink dark lager endlessly, whether it's Czech style, whether it's German style. And it's still kind of a magic trick to me. It's always fun explaining dark, beer doesn't necessarily mean heavy or hefty. But that you're able to make it so that it's not overly roasty, that it's not overly astringent, that it finishes dry, that it finishes clean. It always seems like a magic trick to me, and that's exactly what you do here. Like I said, I can drink this beer infinitely and endlessly, and your expression of it in the Czech style here is absolutely flawless, my friend. And if I didn't say it already, it's always good to know another Adam. So thank you for sharing this with me. Tell me a little bit about the beers you all are drinking.
So I'll start with me. I'm drinking the Märzen, which was one of the 2 Oktoberfest beers we did. We did a traditional Märzen, and then we did some more contemporary Blonde Fest beer.
Nice.
I can let Adam talk a little bit about the process going behind it. I just really like this one. This is something we'll probably talk about a lot. Like, we just have a similar palate. I think what Adam sort of formulates as far as recipes, like the same. I'm not a huge dark beer fan, but like I do really like our dark lager. Yeah. There's there's sort of a roundness to it, like you said, with like the things that I tend to not like, the astringency, the harsh roast, like the techniques that he's using to get those, to make sure that that doesn't happen, are like really important. And yeah, and then the Meriton is another one that, like, I've had some that I like, but it's usually I tend to go for the lighter, the blonder stuff. So,
Yeah.
but this one is another really nice one. It's got something that sort of reminds me of like the beer version of like a nice bourbon. In
Oh,
a way.
I
So
love it.
uh, yeah.
Both your Meritzen and Fest beer are waiting for me. And yeah, I will say the same. A lot of time, Meritzen, historically, it can be kind of cloying, which I think is why a lot of modern breweries and craft breweries are turning toward Fest beer. But you can make a Meritzen that doesn't, it's not like overly sticky, so to speak. I cannot wait. What else? Adam, Justin, what else do you have in hand?
Yeah, I am drinking our alt beer. This
Oh,
is actually going to be a new release, so we just filtered it yesterday. So always fun to pour a beer off the tank and enjoy it day after filtration. So yeah, this is a classic Dusseldorf style alt beer. My friends always make fun of me because I say my desert island beer is Schumacher alt,
ah,
and I stand by it. It's one of my favorite styles. It's funny. It's not a remarkable beer, but I just love it. It's made for drinking. So I'm excited to be drinking this today.
made for drinking, other Adam. I think you and Julie from Notch on our last episode likewise share a love for alt beer. I love that what is old is new again, and it's coming back. During my tenure at Six Point, the head brewer at the time, Danny, alt beer was also his favorite style. And it wasn't, I don't think the market was quite ready for it when Six Point tried to put a larger push behind alt beer in New York City. But great brewers and great minds think alike. So here's to you, Danny, and here's to you, Adam. Justin, what do you have in your hand?
I'm drinking our Czech Pale Lager.
Nice.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. It's 4.2%, but still really medium full bodied. Packs a lot of flavor. We have a kind of combined big love for Budvar, so that was a beer we were kind of emulating a bit in thinking about the recipe design. And similar to the dark, we did a pretty deep dive into hop selection and lot selection and trying to find some more unique local expressive hops from Germany and Czech, and how dark uses predominantly Agnes as kind of an expression of that. The Czech Pale is more of an expression of Sladek, which is a really, really cool hop. Has a little bit of kind of like melon citrus and dankness to it as well.
Nice.
And it's one of those hops too where there's a few breweries in Czech that are brewing with it, larger ones, which is the main reason like why it exists. And if they stopped brewing with it, the farmers would probably stop growing it. So I hope they don't.
Likewise.
Yeah. And similar to the Czech Dark and in a lot of our beers, we use a lot of whole leaf hops as well, hot side in Lauder. And I think, there's a lot of really kind of awesome nuanced green herbal expression that comes through with those additions.
Oh, that's really interesting. Here's to the light side, here's to the dark side. I've definitely seen you all sitting around a table doing sensory analysis together as a brewery, so I can tell how seriously you take it. And we're going to talk more about that. There's so much that is so exciting about Eckhart, that makes you special, that makes you unique, that makes you distinct. Let's get into it. Before we get to present day, we always like to talk about our brewers and our brewery team. We like to know the people and personalities behind it. We like to know whose house we're in. So can you tell me just a little bit about yourselves, life before beer, if there was such a thing, some other jobs you've had that ultimately led you to turn this passion to a profession, whether it was owning and founding a brewery, whether it was brewing as head brewer, whether it was sales and operations within the beer sector, all of which are absolutely vital to success for a modern, fully functioning brewery. So tell us who you are and how you got here.
Okay, yeah, I'll get started. I my background is in cooking. I was a chef and cook for a long time. And I worked primarily in fine dining for 20 years. Sort of bounced around various sectors of the cooking world. I taught cooking for a while. I worked in a bunch of different concepts, but I was always into cooking, flavor, creating flavors, and then the other side of that, of course, is like hospitality, and it's sharing with people and sort of sharing in their enjoyment of the product and of the experience. And I got into brewing. I got into beer first through food, and then because I like making things, was interested in learning how to make things. And I sort of journeyed through the home brewer process and the beer enthusiast sort of process. I first started getting into craft beer when, in the sort of initial wave, when it was British styles and then Belgian styles were sort of all the rage, because especially because of the high ABVs and stuff like that, but also because it was interesting flavors that people were not used to experiencing in beer, in the U.S. anyway, and because they were food, because they were sort of could be treated as food beverages. And I like wine, but I was never as like into wine as a lot of people were. And then
It's
and then
good to hear that from a chef and someone with a history in both culinary arts and hospitality. So yes to wine, but more to beer. That's fantastic. I love it. Keep going, please.
yeah, I mean, the way some people say beer, wine people tend to say beer is one dimensional, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I feel like beer has a versatility, not to open a can of worms, but that wine doesn't. But anyway, yeah, I was just always just more interested in it, and owned a small craft beer shop for a little while in the city. But I was always more interested in the making side of it, and I mean, it's a long story, but essentially, I started to think about doing a brewery concept, and there was just never felt like a concept that needed to exist, given like how saturated the brewery market was, over the last 10, 15 years.
Hmm.
And then I just, as my journey continued, I just became more and more interested in these types of beers. They're very flavorful, full, but they're drinkable, and tricky to make, which is always like intriguing to me. Like as a home brewer, I dumped 90% of the lagers I made because they were just never turned out the way I wanted them to be, and I wasn't going to drink them if they weren't right.
Well, A plus and extra points for trying.
So I this through a various. I was trying to revive a brewery that had gone out of business, Folks Beer. I don't know if you know about them.
No
They were
folks
a
beer, yeah.
great small brewery in Brooklyn that was doing a lot of lager production, and then they went out of business. And I was hoping to revive that, and that didn't work. But then I'd sort of come into this business plan that I thought looked, by that point had a place to be. Like I was looking at other breweries like Notch, or like Casey Beer, or Beer Stott, or what's the Shilling, yeah. And I was seeing like, look, people are making a go of it with lagers, and it's working. And New York is a huge market. It seemed like an ideal place to do it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I got to where I am. And I'll let then Justin was the next sort of player into the picture. And we met through some weird circumstances, but the timing was perfect, and he came on right early in the early stages to help sort of create lay the groundwork.
So I want to hear the weird circumstances since you mentioned it. But I first just a lot of love for what you're saying, the love for lager, appreciation for beer as food. That has been a recurring theme on this show. And just real quick, what was the little craft beer store that you owned and
It was called
operated?
Some Good Beer, and now we were partnered. I was partnered with a wine shop that was next door,
Oh,
down in the
amazing.
village, and we were trying to we were trying to create some sort of synergy there, where he had people buying wine, and then we wanted to any people who wanted beer. We were right next door, and that sort of was starting to gain some traction right when COVID hit, and so
Yeah.
the bottom
Yeah.
sort of fell out of it. But
Some Good Beer was on East 8th Street, right?
yeah,
Like
that's
just
right.
as you cross Fifth Avenue. God, I feel like I
Okay.
remember you had a beer tender there that was heavy into technical death metal. And you were down the street from Arts and Crafts Beer Parlor. And if you kept walking east, you'd hit Good Beer, which I know is now also defunct or out of business, but all great institutions in their own right. I love to hear it. Here's to some good beer, and here's to more
Yeah,
good beer.
the small world.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, Justin, tell us what led you to operations and sales manager, how life in beer began, and what were the circumstances around you and Nick connecting?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I've had a pretty diverse past. I've kind of bounced around a few different industries. Was sort of born into the hospitality industry. Used to have a family-owned hotel down on the Jersey Shore. So grew up around hospitality and got into restaurants at a very young age. Um, and studied photography, art history, stuff like that, and got into the film and TV production world.
Oh, nice.
The whole time maintaining like 1 foot in F&B, working in some really fantastic restaurants with really amazing wine programs and cocktail programs in New York City and Santa Barbara. Um, Eventually, I had my own production company, little multimedia kind of commercial company, and sold that and moved out west with my wife when shortly after my daughter was born. We bought a 40-acre farm in Northern California to do various things.
Wow.
But I've always had a big love, similar to Nick, in making things. I'm an artist at my core too. Love all things beverage. Was really into wine and being in Northern California and just the whole West Coast there. The vinification scene out there is amazing. Got to meet and work with some really great winemakers, which actually led me to beer. Because at that time, I was also kind of feeling like, oh, I feel like there's even more creativity and expression possible in the beer scene. This was 10-ish years ago. So similarly, got to kind of shadow and hang out with some awesome brewers and breweries in Northern and Southern California. Lived down there for a bit too. And then when we moved back here, I was like, all right, like I really want to get into beer production. So started doing that, did the Siebel route, all that stuff.
Nice.
And then I was at Five Boroughs Brewing Company, kind of wearing a few different hats there. And then I unfortunately had an accident at that brewery, which through various ways ended up, was introduced to Nick, met Nick. And at that time, I mean, I was also had in my mind, oh, I'd love to open a brewery someday.
Yeah.
And met Nick, who had a concept that I, very strongly believed in and still do. That was almost 2.5, 3 years ago or something like that at this point.
It might be more.
Yeah.
I think it's 3.5 now.
Yeah. So, yeah, Nick and I just continued meeting, hanging out, having beers, talking about the concept. And then eventually it came time to look for a space. And one thing kind of led to another, and here we are. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a master brewer by any means or a technical brewer. That's why we've got Adam. But just the kind of various things I've done with logistics and operations in different fields and sales just kind of all acquiesce and lend themselves well to managing a brewery and making sure we're ready to rock each day.
I love it. Yeah, I'll say again, you and I definitely have a lot in common just in terms of background, whether it's production or acting or entertainment. Shared
and
level.
music too. Did you do the jingle? in the beginning, the opening jingle?
Fun fact. So the voice is actually George Suletis, the owner of St. Vitus Bar. Guitar is me. Bass is our editor and producer, Jeremy Batchelor. We call our band the Bad Actors. But yeah, that's the three of us putting together the No Life Till Auger jingle. I think I'm going to release a 7-inch someday. So yeah, music, acting, entertainment, art, production, and ultimately beer. And you give me faith that this sojourn, the sabbatical to Northern California, can also bear fruit and ultimately lead back to New York City. So maybe we were neighbors before, or maybe we will be at some point. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I was down in Ojai too, and you're in Sausalito?
So right now, Sausalito, outside San Francisco in the Bay Area. I've lived down in Hermosa Beach in Los Angeles. All these places make us who we are. But for always, just forever nostalgic for New York, because it just was over a decade there and kind of the most defining moments of my life to date. So, Adam, for you now, this is all becoming abundantly clear, like how Eckhart is a reflection of all of you, and we'll talk more about this, but the tap room is so handsome. The menu is so thoughtfully curated. The wine list and other options are so thoughtfully curated. And first and foremost, the beer is very thoughtfully curated. So tell us more about your children here. Tell us about life before beer, again, if there was, other jobs you might have had, how you turned this passion to a profession and found yourself ultimately as head brewer at Eckhart.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from the East Coast, originally from Connecticut. So I went to UConn, and in my junior year, I was fortunate enough to study abroad in Ireland, and that's actually where I met my now wife. But I'd say that's kind of where my love of beer started, was just traveling around Europe, tasting different beers that I'd never really tried before at that age. So that's what really piqued my interest into beer. So coming back from Ireland, graduated college, and stayed with my partner, and she was going to school in Boston. So we moved up to Boston together, and I started working for Harpoon Brewery in their tap room. So I was doing tours and bartending. They called it being a beer captain back in the day.
Yeah.
So, I did that for a bit, and that really kind of just elevated that bug for me to just want to really focus on beer full time.
Nice.
And then, yeah, my wife was fortunate enough to get a job opportunity in Sydney, Australia, while we were in Boston, and we packed up and cruised on over. And so my mission was to get a brewing job once we got over there, and luckily achieved that. I got to kind of get in on the ground up. I was the first production employee hired at this brewery called The Grifter. Shout out to them, Glenn, Faith, Matt, and Trent, legends.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's really where I got to cut my teeth. I started as a main kind of cellar person and made my way all up to lead brewer and cellar manager once I was done there. So really had an awesome opportunity and learned so much while I was there. And then kind of common theme, my wife's a bit of a weapon. She got another job in Amsterdam. So after 4 years in Australia, we moved over to Europe and settled down in Amsterdam, and I started brewing there as well. I was lucky enough, before I started my brewing job there, I had about 2 months of downtime, and I was kind of, with her blessing, I was like, listen, I've always wanted to kind of do this almost like stage idea of learning and going to learn from different breweries in Europe. So
Yeah.
I headed up to Munich and learned a lot more about lager brewing. And then I was lucky enough to head to Belgium as well and learn more about lambic brewing too. So I spent kind of 2 months doing both of those things, which I felt incredibly lucky and gracious to do. So that was a really fun opportunity. And then, yeah, spent another 4 years in Amsterdam brewing for a couple different breweries there. And then found this opportunity, and we still have a bunch of family on the East Coast. It felt like the right timing. This concept sounded amazing. As Justin said, super talented group of people I was super stoked to work with, and just felt like the right time to head back over here. So
No accidents. All meant to be. Once again, a lot in common. I'm noticing a similar theme. My wife's job has also led us crisscrossing across the country, so it seems to be the way. Justin, you mentioned you have a daughter. I just celebrated my daughter's first birthday. And Adam, I think it's even more interesting that a lot of your roots are in just brewing roots, professional brewing in Australia, because that means between Australia and New Zealand, you must know your New World hops very well. So the fact that you're really exploring and investing in what would be considered, I guess, old world hops, continental hops, is just fascinating. That's just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, Okay. It is good to know all of you, and I feel like I know you already. I feel like we've somehow met before, but now that we're friends and now that we're up to present day, I want to talk about the brewery itself. Your personalities, your past experiences clearly influence everything at Eckhart. We know you specialize in European style lagers. I think you were named for Meister Eckhart.
That's
Um,
correct.
German priest, theologian, philosopher, mystic. I want to know what's in a name. I want to know a little bit more about that. And then your beer has been available basically since the end of last year, starting to circulate around New York City bars, around New York State festivals. But you've been open to the public as of this year since basically September 2025. So again, nothing happens overnight. Even though it might look like it, nothing is effortless, even though you're making it look easy right now. You're doing everything everyone is not supposed to do, which is open up a new brewery in 2025. So more power to you. But tell me a little bit. So first and foremost, what's in a name? Who's Meister Eckhart, and how did he inspire Eckhart Beer Company?
Yeah. I mean, you did a good job explaining, his who he was, and his philosophy. I mean, like many things in this business, I spent a lot of time grinding with a branding agency, trying to think about names, doing, all these sort of word association exercise type things. I had been reading a lot of philosophy, sort of started over COVID. Also, just my point in life, thinking about what life means. And Meister Eckhart had been mentioned a lot by a lot of the people I was reading.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just at some point, like a lot of these things do, like just came out of nowhere. No, that's Eckhart is the name of this business.
Yeah.
And what is sort of behind it is his philosophy, along with a lot of the other sort of philosophy that I was reading, it's about being in the present. It's all about just like being as still, quieting your mind, being fully present in the moment, as much as possible, and just allowing that to be enough.
Hmm.
And that's something that does not most people. It's almost impossible for people to do that these days.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do was try and create a place where people could be more present. That has a lot to do with how we've designed the tap room and how we want people to experience the tap room, is sort of feel like they can slow down a little bit. It definitely informs how we make our beer, which is that it is a very slow, deliberate process. We make a very narrow, compared to a lot of craft breweries, a narrow range of beers, and the idea is we make them over and over and over again, and we're just trying to perfect and repeat, and refine. And this beer takes a lot of it's not flashy, it's very humble in certain ways, but it takes a lot of attention to really make correctly.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do is sort of in a selfish way with this business is just use that as have it be an exercise for me in just focusing on the little details every step of the way. So that's the idea of naming Eckhart. Naming the business Eckhart reminds me of that every single day. That's
Yeah.
my job, and if I'm going to do my job like to my utmost potential, that's what I have to do first. So yeah, that's sort of the philosophy behind it.
Very well said. That there is even a philosophy behind it. You're giving me chills, my friend. A lot of the time, just with the number of breweries that have opened over the last decade plus, people will say, "You know what? We just had to find a name that was still available and seemingly original." That there is an intention and focus behind yours. I guess I would agree. Like that. We constantly kind of maybe regret the past and want and long for the future and forget or get lost in the present moment. And sitting and having a beer kind of stills and stabilizes just mind, body, spirit, whatever you want to call it, for me, all at once. And if that's the goal of throwing open the doors to your brewery and your tap room, again, as a gathering place, as a community, or for someone who wants to take a moment and sit in the present and savor, that is a very worthy cause. So very, very inspiring. Um, so if that's behind the name, the vision, the mission, I do want to talk about not just what makes Eckhart different, but I mean, a huge part of the answer to that question is that you are opening a brewery in 2025, a new brewery, a lager centric, almost across the board, all lager brewery. Like I said, you're doing everything that everyone is being told not to do now. And I think it would really help our listeners to just kind of know, what is the playbook? Like, how are you doing this? I'm guessing you can't necessarily just walk into a bank now with a business plan saying, I want to open a brewery because it sounds fun, it sounds cool, because the numbers aren't really there nationally to back it up at the moment. Give us just some insight. How do you do this? How do you open a new brewery in this year in New York City? What got you here? What is that story behind Eckhart?
That story isn't, if you're talking about sort of financing and stuff like that, that's not a particularly interesting story. I have my own resources. This is funded by myself. And, my intent here is that, sure, a lot of people going purely by the numbers probably wouldn't do it the way I have done it. I think there's a lot of decisions I've made that hopefully will have returns in a tangible way. Creating a tap room that is a little more welcoming than some sort of very bare bones breweries. I think the hope is that will make us more of a destination, and once people are here, encourage them to stay a little bit longer. Doing sort of having a full menu and a full kitchen, same thing.
Yeah.
Set us apart. The idea is, I think the idea, one of the things we're sort of fighting against a little bit is people's vision of what brewery means. They have a very specific vision of the type of craft brewery that proliferated over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That was fairly cookie cutter kind of operation. And that was enough for a long time. All you had to do was do that, and people were excited about it, especially, in your local area, and you could do pretty well, and you could grow and get pretty big. It's not like that now. I think the fact that the market is contracting a little bit, I am hoping is sort of an advantage for us, that we can stick it out, that we are different, that we are, we do table service in the entire tap room. So you don't have to go get up and stand up and wait 4 deep at the bar for a beer. Someone will bring one to you,
Nice.
Streamlining that process, and having a full menu, so that you don't feel like you need to get up and go somewhere to get something to eat after, 2.5 beers. You'll stay for another one because we have food.
Yeah.
So yeah, the question is, one of the examples I use is there's a very successful Michelin-starred chef in New York and globally, who his flagship restaurant, he always sort of, and I'm not trying to do this exactly, but his feeling was like the flagship restaurant just needed to sort of operate at break even or a little bit better, because he just needed to demonstrate what he was capable of, and then he could do other, he could turn that into other opportunities. I think this tap room can actually do very well financially, but there is a certain degree of, let's devote more resources, maybe than you absolutely would have to make it more of a standout, and to sort of demonstrate what we can do, and create like an impression for people of what this brand is. So
Again, well said. I agree. You know, the craft beer industry, maybe it's in a contraction, maybe it's in ultimately a correction for the better. But giving thought to your brand, giving thought to your tap room and the experience there, giving thought to the menu. I mean, these are all profoundly different than kind of, as you say, is maybe what was expected of a craft brewery over the last decade. You know, I saw you have horizontal serving tanks over the bar, I believe, and you're pulling directly from there for customers. Everything is in a Willie Becker, a 2 incher mug, or a Stange glass, served by point 0.3 or point 0.5 of a liter. I think that's roughly 10 to 17 ounces, maybe, give or take. It's labeled as filter or unfiltered on your menu. You do all the traditional check pours, including the Maliko pour. I think when you do those, you have to send a royalty check to Jake at Human Robot, but he seems pretty forgiving about it. And everything from a Lucre faucet. So that this is becoming not only just kind of the norm and the standard and the expectation, but that it's still like new and exciting and different within the craft beer space. For now, it is a welcome, call it what you will, a correction, a contraction. Um, Hearing as well, just from you, Justin, from you, Adam, just tell us a little bit about kind of how you approach Eckhart, the vision and mission behind it, and what, in addition to all that's been said, might kind of make it unique and distinct and stand out in the current market and your home in New York City for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Mind if I jump in? Yeah, I mean, for me, and to kind of piggyback on what you just asked Nick and he spoke to, a big thing about what we do is the intentionality of it. And right now it's every day I get emails from this or that association that's talking about recommendations for like, what do you need to do to grow your taproom business? And I see a lot of talk around doing things strictly from a financial gains perspective, that like we went into this being like, we want to do it this way because this is what we care about. We care about hospitality. We care about the sourcing of our ingredients and the quality of the work that we do from top to bottom. And I think there's a big difference in the kind of genuinity of that, the genuineness, if that's a word.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So I don't know if I got away from your original question, but no.
No, I think again the focus, the intention behind what you're doing is clear, and then how you're doing it, I think, is really inspirational. And again, like you said, Nick, whether that's from like private funds or dealing with an investor or many like micro personal investors, like whatever got to you to this moment now, I think anyone in the position to open their doors and open a new brewery and release new beer onto the market has to be very focused, thoughtful, and considerate about how they do it, because there's no margin for error anymore. Um, for you, Adam, also just kind of doing the brewing, brewing the beer for a new brewery open this year. A little bit more about just the vision, the intention behind it, as we've been saying. Just what do you think? Really, it's actually kind of remarkable to me that New York City didn't really have a devoted lager brewery up until now. So I don't know if that was also just part of the focus from the start, or if it evolved over time. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, mainly just on ethos again and kind of the name of this brewery. Like, we're super fortunate to have the time and give these beers the time that we think they need, which is super important and a lot of times not possible in the craft beer industry. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I like to drive home working here. What I feel so lucky to be doing here is just, we have really long fermentation and conditioning times. Like, conditioning is really important for me in this process. Like, lagering is a huge part of lager beer, but I think conditioning actually plays a huge role here, and we're conditioning our beers for 3 to 4 weeks before we even start stepping down, because I think the yeast is still in operation and still wants to change the profile of the beer. And that's probably what I like to drive home most with our beers. To Justin's point as well, being able to use whole leaf hop and getting to source Weyermann malt and ingredients in general. Like, we're just really hyper focused on that. But I would really truly say time, time is everything on these beers. And we're fortunate to have that time. And it's really fun to just see, a 14-day fermented beer that then gets conditioned for 3 weeks totally just flip on itself. Like you just see these expressions change day to day, and it's just really fun to watch that happen.
Yeah.
We didn't come up with it, but in the wine world, low intervention, gets talked about a lot. And we like to kind of think that what we do here is like low intervention brewing.
Oh,
Which to Adam's point, it's, having worked in regional production breweries, etc., where it's like you have to turn that IPA around as fast as humanly possible and use every trick in the book to do it. And it's just, we're not doing that. We're brewing with real ingredients. We're not using additives, clarifying agents. We're really kind of being as traditional as we possibly can. And
yeah.
I think you can taste it in the beer, and it's a pleasure to work this way. We're also super fortunate with the entire design process we went through and the amount of custom design that went into our brew house and facility, that allowed us to build a kit in a place that was meant to brew lager, and do it efficiently, and consistently.
Yeah. Time is the most valuable resource, kind of since we've been talking about
For sure.
living in the moment versus looking to the past or looking toward the future. Adam, for anyone who's listening that might not know the difference, can you just speak to the distinction between lagering and conditioning, and maybe also tell us a little bit about the size and scale you're working on, the equipment you're brewing with, since Justin just mentioned it?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, once we kind of finish that first primary fermentation, we'll spund, which is kind of capping the tank and let it start to naturally carbonate itself while it's still fermenting in secondary, and then we'll start heading into that conditioning phase. So we'll slowly start stepping that beer down to about 41 degrees, where it'll just kind of rest at that temperature for usually about 3 or 4 weeks there. It's low enough that you start flocculating your yeast out, but also some yeast still stays in suspension and still changes that beer. And that's the kind of phase that I really enjoy the most. And then lagering is really when you truly crash that beer down. You want to get all of that yeast out of suspension, and that's that true, moment of clarification and getting that beer super bright,
I see.
and fully carbonated as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. I think it's easy to kind of get the two flipped. I'm going to remember that forever, that lagering is the true point of clarity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And a little bit about the size and scale you're brewing on.
Yeah, so we have a 3 vessel, 10 barrel brew house from Crew, out of Canada, which was built and fit out, really, truly for lager brewing. So the ease of decoction, and the use of whole leaf hops and things of that nature, like it makes it so easy and user friendly. A lot of it is automated as well. We work off of a super sack, which makes it super helpful for milling in and grain handling as well. Super good on the back and just your overall body in general. But also allows us to focus on, all right, we want to use this one type of main Pilsner base malt. We're going to stick with that. And then we're kind of operating, we have 4 30-barrel uni tanks, 6 20-barrel uni tanks, and 2 10-barrel uni tanks, and 3 30-barrel bright tanks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's a 10-barrel kit.
10-barrel kit, yeah.
Yeah.
Bubbles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say, like, thinking back on Six Point in the original facility and Red Hook, those brewers did not have rakes in their mash tun. What was still being produced there was all done by hand. And we already gave a shout out to Danny, but God, Heather, and just everyone else who was there. That was hard labor and hard work. So,
Was Andrew there when you were at Six Point?
Andrew, I think that was a little before my time.
Beforehand, yeah.
Yeah. But all like truly done by hand. And that's not to say, what you're doing as well is clearly like small batch crafted lager production. But efficiency, I mean, using like whole leaf, whole cone hops, not efficient. Lagers in general, like I said, not efficient, compared to like the former model of like turning on an IPA as quickly as possible. But when you take the time to invest in this, I want to believe, and I think you're right, that the difference is noticeable and it's valuable. Can you
I
take
want
us?
to believe it too. We'll
Yeah.
find out whether it's true or not.
Yeah, well, it's your money on the line, Nick. So we'll see. But know that I'm here to support you, and know that everyone listening to this episode is here to support you.
There's no one thing that it's this attention to all the little things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's amazing to use whole leaf hops. It's amazing to be able to work a kit that decocts so efficiently and accurately.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a hundred little things that when you pay attention to all of them, it makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess speaking of money and dividends and whatnot, just do you have any intention of like signing with a wholesaler or distributing, or is it all DTC at this point through Halftime? It's Halftime Beer and Beverage, right? So they operate a couple storefronts throughout New York, but they do ship directly to consumer, and they were early to the game to do that. But outside of Halftime, does anyone who wants your beer have to come to you to experience it?
Well, we self-distribute right now. So basically anywhere we can get our van to, we will distribute to. And we were just talking about this. Like I was overly cautious about distribution in the early days. And in retrospect, I think I would have been more just tried to get packaged beer more places to get people more aware of us before we opened.
Interesting.
So right now we distribute sort of the farthest we distribute is Westchester. Halftime buys from us when they want to buy from us. So that's sort of, we're at their mercy in terms of getting it out to the rest anywhere that they ship. So anyone who's out there who wants our beer that's not in New York State, go call Halftime and complain.
No, to say good things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great. Like they do an awesome job. It's they've got their own considerations that they have to deal with. So
after we wrap this episode, I'll just give them a call and say, "Hey, do you have Eckhart beer on hand?"
Yeah.
Well, you got to order one of the 24 beers of cheer.
No, that's right. We just
They're
did a new
Halftime in the New York State Brewers Association put together kind of like
a beer advent.
a bad advent box of beer. So
Yeah.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
So you're self-distributed
self-distributed
around the city.
We are. The intention is to be as much taproom as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another thing people have been saying for the last couple of years is, distro is a real grind. And if you think you're going to make a big pile by doing it that way, you're in for a rude awakening. That's, again, why I sort of invested the resources I did in the taproom is, look, we want to sell as much beer out the door, on our own premises as possible. I of course want to get it to other places and spread it, more far and wide. And we are just right now focusing on taproom primarily and local distro.
Yeah. And Justin, is that you pulling up in the van when you are distributing locally?
It used to be. We have another brewer that's actually out in the van today doing deliveries. Kevin, great guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, since the beginning, it's been me hitting the road to land accounts and did all the deliveries up until recently. And yeah, now we're refocused and kind of growing the distribution. Again, we kind of took a bit of a pause on account landing during kind of end of Q2, Q3 as we geared up for opening the tap room. But yeah, Adam and I are out there doing sales. Adam's joining me now. He's quite the salesman. So.
Oh, I bet. Adam, you've got the hair for it. You've got the name for it. We're all in sales in some form at the end of the day. But what a full service operation to know that. And you know what? That might also be, when you think about your beer out in the world, obviously lager, I think it's not as prone to oxidizing as IPA, right? It has more shelf stability, more of a shelf life, but it is scary to think about this thing that you've put so much time and labor into. You're not really in control of that experience if you're with a distributor once it leaves the tap room, Something that has been really refreshing on No Life to Lagers for any doom and gloom around the beer industry. Everyone who is doubling down and investing and reinvesting in their tap room experience and their tap room as a destination seems to be doing just fine. Um, so I think there is a bright future ahead from Eckhart. Tell me a little bit about your neighborhood. Tell me if Bushwick, take me back to Bushwick, and is it still Bushwick? I know you're at 545 Johnson Avenue. You're near the Jefferson L stop. I think you're a block away from Elsewhere, a great venue where I saw a lot of shows. Your neighbors with, of course, our friends at Kings County Brewers Collective, and you're close to Roberta's, where I got married. So
Oh, wow.
a lot of love for Bushwick. Tell us a little bit about how the local community has embraced you, and do you find that people are taking the? So when I first moved to New York, Bushwick, it just seemed like the far east and kind of forbidding, and I started riding the L train a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further, and that's how I ended up getting married at Roberta's. It became one of my favorite neighborhoods and one of the most vibrant neighborhoods in New York City. So is Bushwick still Bushwick? Tell us if the local community has embraced you, and tell us if people are getting on the L train to come visit since you opened.
Yeah, we're working on that. I think that a tricky balance is that we're trying to navigate is being a destination. One of the things that's really great about our location is how close it is to that L stop, and the L is like used to be a joke train, but like now it's super easy to get here from Manhattan. It's a 20-minute, from Union Square, it's 20 minutes on the L.
Yeah.
Here. So there's a certain degree of trying to convince, the Manhattanites to come out here and check it out. But like, we're not gonna sustain unless we really engage with the local community. And this is, like you said, a really interesting, creative, like vibrant neighborhood. It's changing really fast the way like lots of neighborhoods are changing. There's certainly a big gentrification push, and that can be good in some ways and can be bad in other ways.
Sure.
We would love, we're really trying to, our big challenge right now and what we're working hard to do is just like show people we're here and have them come give us a try. We've been open for a little over 8 weeks and we're still, people walk by and look in the window and they're like, what is that? I don't, so we're just trying to basically communicate with the neighborhood, be welcoming. Whoever takes a chance on us, just give them a good experience. I'm hopeful. We're making connections with, we've been talking with the other local businesses that have been here for a long time. We're in touch with Roberta's. We'd love to do some kind of, collaboration with them or elsewhere, or just be engaged with those places that already have roots in the community.
Yeah. Roberta's was probably my single biggest win and single biggest account at 6 Point while I was there. So yeah, if you're listening, Roberta's, I think that'd be a very fitting collaboration beer. Roberta's likes its Pilsner. They definitely, it's great pizza beer, but they definitely like the lighter side of beers. So I can see that. I think you are giving people a reason to come out. It's I more than hope. I have true belief. So I think you have core beers at any given moment on the board, basically spanning German and Czech style lagers, right? You'll have a Helles, a German style Pils, Czech style pale lager, Czech amber, Czech dark. All these beers are 5.5, 5.4% and under, right? So the point is that people can come out on the L train or however they get to you and definitely have more than one. You do have an IPA on the board. One IPA, I love it. Similar thing at Notch, one or two for whoever wants it. And the expression of the best if we're going to make this right. So my understanding is it's kind of it's like a rotating IPA, can be West Coast style, can be hazy. The hops will change. It also clocks in around 5.5+%, give or take. So still drinkable. And then I don't know if these are rotational, but you mentioned the Fest beer. You mentioned the Märzen. I saw there's a Kolsch, and of course, Adam is drinking the alt beer. Still, these all hover just over or under 6%. So I'm guessing again, like the point is like you want people to come and drink and stay, and that's part of why you're delivering like this style beer at this level ABV. But tell us just a little bit about what they're going to see on the board as far as beers go whenever they arrive, core versus rotational. And then after that, I want to talk, of course, more about the taproom experience, just because your taproom is so handsome. All my first impressions are a lot of thought has gone into the space. And then we've got to talk about your menu, given your culinary background, Nick. But yeah, tell us what's waiting for people when they walk through the door on the beer board.
Sure thing. Yeah, I'll just give the sort of general rundown, and you guys can go into like more detail. The plan was, again, keep it narrow. I think they think they want a choice of 50 different beers, and then when they're actually put in that position, a lot of people just shut down. They don't know what to do with that. I think giving people fewer choices, as long as they're more well thought out, is the way to go. So yeah, 5 core beers. Helles, we had to start with Helles. It's a just a fundamental beer style that, lager, you couldn't not do a Helles if you're, being a lager brewery. German style pills, for me, pills is about bitterness. It's about that really snappy, good malt character, but still like almost painful bitterness. And I'm a German style pills guy, and I just love that bitterness.
And that is the primary distinction, would you say, just between Helles and Pilsner for anyone listening? It's in that firm bitter expression versus
and the leaner hop character, like the Helles has a little bit fuller, rounder, and like maybe a little more touch of sweetness, and it's dialed back. The malt is dialed back in a pills, and then you're still getting hop aroma in the pills, but that bitterness is just there.
Yeah.
And then 3 Czech styles. I took a little research trip to Munich and Prague, and my main takeaway from that is the Czech style beers are just more like vibrant, and like they don't adhere sort of as narrowly to like specific style guidelines. They're very expressive of whatever they want to be expressive of, ingredient wise. And so we have 3 shades of Czech beer that we all want to really express primarily malt, but then they also have very hop forward to varying degrees, and then more fermentation character, a little bit. We treat the fermentation a little bit differently, and you get some yeast character out of them to just liven up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then as far as our seasonal beers, some of it is just what do we feel like doing? What is a style we love? What seems appropriate to the season? It has to fit into our sort of model. But the grapefruit radler was a good example of it was sort of midsummer, and few of us had run into people who are talking about grapefruit radler, and we're like, let's give it a try.
Yeah.
How would we do it? And so Adam came up with a recipe, sort of all collaborated on how we wanted it to drink. And we have a sort of a profile that we tend to like, which is lower sweetness, more crisp, more drinkable. So, and then our IPA, was again, another thing. I really like Alchemist. So there's sort of a little bit of trying to go for that flavor, like that original Vermont IPA character.
Nice.
That you get nice sort of dank hop character, as well as some fruitiness, but good bitterness. So those are, and then, Fest beer and Marzen, because it's seasonally appropriate. We have a Baltic Porter coming up, which will be our strongest beer that we've made so far.
Amazing. Baltic Porter with brewed with lager yeast.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's it's a full lager. It's just a strong, dark, portery lager.
Yeah. That's incredible.
That's the general guidelines, and then it's about.
We also have, this doesn't air for a few days, so why not? We can just say it now.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got time. Yeah.
We'll have a fun beer up on the menu at the end of December. That was a collaboration we brewed with Other Half and the Chicos and Sons, which is a family owned and operated, really lovely kind of high end grocery in Westchester.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They have full on bars at all the groceries and have really fantastic beer programs. And it's just a lovely place to hang out. So there will be an Italian red lager coming out in December that we brewed the three companies together. So that's something fun to look forward to.
Yeah. It's so funny. It's just thinking about beers, or breweries like Other Half, like The Alchemist. Like, you used to have to like wait in line for Other Half, or you'd have to drive, of course, to Vermont to The Alchemist. And now I can find those beers, those breweries, some of their brands within walking distance of where I happen to live in Sausalito at the moment. So have the times changed. But an Italian red lager sounds like a really fun collaboration. All these beers, maybe with the exception of the Baltic Porter, of course, small beers, big character. Small beers, but full flavored, flavor forward. They have a character, they have quality, they have spirit. Tell us a little bit more about, well, first and foremost, I guess just Adam, again, since they're all your children, just kind of how you want people to be greeted and welcome at the tap room. I am kind of curious, is IPA still king? Do you sell as much IPA as anything else at any given moment? Or are you all really leading with lager and that's what people who have visited so far are coming to drink? Just what's waiting for them on the board? What's their first experience and first impression when they walk into Eckhart?
Last I checked, just on the sales front, Czech Pale is the leader,
Czech
followed
Pale.
by Pils.
Yeah, Pils and Czech Pale kind of fight neck and neck. For a lager brewery, the P-Mix is, we sell a decent amount of the IPA, which is great.
Yeah,
for sure. In terms of just kind of being greeted, I mean, appearance and foam is big for us, we want people to walk through the door and get presented with a really stunning, whether it be brilliantly clear or not, beer with a really nice lovely head of foam. But I mean, to Nick's point and Justin's point as well, just service and just the actual atmosphere of the tap room is so important. Like even just being in Europe and going to brown bars in Amsterdam or bars in Italy or Spain, like we just want people to feel relaxed. We want them to feel at home. And obviously, as soon as they walk through the door and go to that bar, we want to make sure that beer's got a nice solid 3 fingers ahead on it and is full of flavor and just puts a smile on their face, to be honest. So that's kind of the main goal.
Yeah, well, you've put a smile on my face with your dark lager. Let's talk more about when they walk into the tap room, just because it is so thoughtfully designed. It is so handsome. What is the model for that? What's the inspiration behind the space itself? And as well as I see you've started to do some events. You have you have DJs coming in. You're about to do, or maybe by the time the airs have done, like a live reading series for Surviving New York, which I love every decade or so. The question is New York alive or dead? And let's talk about it. So tell us more about the taproom design, what inspired it, and tell us more about the experience there and the events you've had so far to date.
Yeah, the intent was I've been trying to, from the beginning, figure out what from the sort of European model will translate and what might not. The example I always use is if you get an espresso in an airport in Europe, it always comes in an actual ceramic mug. They would never dream of giving you an espresso in a paper cup, right? Yeah. There's just that level of, it's just a little bit, just slow down, just do it right, And I understand why, I just understand the appeal of coffee to go, right? And convenience and speed. But again, like I was saying before, the idea is I want people to come in and feel like they can just slow down for a second. So proper glassware, table service, we're really trying to impress on our service staff, look, slow down, pay attention. You're not don't be thinking about the next table when you're talking to this table. You're talking to this table now. When you're done with talking to them, you can move on to the next thing, right? Pouring beers, a lot of training in pouring beers. Why is it this one have so much foam? Is it, let's just come up with a system. And we've been really lucky. We have a service staff that's really engaged and wants to do better. But it's not the typical, that's been a challenge. It's, someone looking for a brewery, tapster job is not necessarily thinking that's what's going to be asked of them. So
Sure.
That's a lot of work. And it's, especially in the early days, just constantly correcting and checking things. So yeah, and then the design wise, I sort of wanted to do a little bit of a reference to like a Bavarian beer hall or a Central European kind of beer hall thing, but I didn't ever want to be a themey place. We're not a German themed bar. We're very much American, but taking inspiration from these things. I also like sort of Japanese style aesthetic, and that's pretty obvious in the sort of design of things. So, which has backfired a little bit. Sometimes people walk by and think we're like a sushi place. Looking in the windows. Like, but that was the intent, and our designers did an awesome job. And then, the other part was just dividing the space up into sort of smaller zones. I thought was a really cool idea. So we have a beer garden area in the front that's got big facade windows. It's double height ceilings. Then we have a tavern area has lower ceilings. It's more cozy with booths and that type of seating. And then we have the main bar area with the serving tanks and windows into the brewery. And that's like, oh yeah, if you're thinking about like going into that brewery warehouse and you want to see a lot of stainless, like that's your place, you get that. And then we have a mezzanine area too, which we're definitely pushing as a separate event space. We're doing ratcheting up the tap room programming. You still it's New York. You gotta fight for people's attention.
Sure.
You gotta be giving them a reason to come in every night. And luckily there's a lot of really ambitious people out there who want to do events, and like this reading group that's coming in has a huge following, and they just looking for a space, and we want to be that space. So
good stuff. Yeah. I was trying to put my finger on some of the other influences. It's interesting. You mentioned Japanese culture, but it is a really handsome space. Very warm, very inviting, very welcoming, very modern. It's not that you are in kind of like an abandoned industrial space hoping people will find their way there. You are clearly thinking about creating a destination, and you want them to walk through the door and know where they're going upon arrival. So the menu also speaks to like many different influences, many different cultures, firmly rooted in German and Czech food, but I see international recipes on there. I see you're doing a full Sunday brunch. I haven't had a kolache since I was growing up in Texas. That's really interesting. Your malt and Marmite tart has already gotten several shout outs on the interwebs. It's just a really interesting menu. And you also have a very curated wine list. And Justin, maybe that kind of speaks to your experience here in Northern California, as well as all of your previous experiences. But, that looks like as if I was walking into like a natural wine shop or a store, anywhere in Brooklyn, like it could hold its own. You offer NYC shrubs, which is basically like a vinegar and fruit soda. I mean, that is distinctly New York, and you have cider options as well. So again, a full menu. Can you tell us a little bit about the chefs and the kitchen behind it?
Yeah. So my background was in cooking, and I felt from the beginning that foods had to be an important part of it. And I think a lot of breweries would like to do food in a more serious way, but if they don't, it can be very intimidating if that's not something you've ever sort of managed. Because being a chef, that wasn't intimidating to me. Like, setting up a kitchen and running a food program wasn't something like I felt like I had can keep a good handle on that. We have two great chefs, both very talented, and good palates, and good creative energy and are, they want to try sort of push the envelope of what brewery food is. I always wanted to do food that was, again, I didn't want it to be German themed, but there are certain things you can't deny the appeal of like a brat and the sauerkraut.
Yeah.
And we make them in house, and they're fantastic,
Incredible.
And I sort of wanted to give people things that were similar to what they wanted, like we're used to with beer food, but just a little bit different. Try to, and then also the idea behind it is give them a reason to have another beer. We're here to sell beer. The food can be great and on its own, but it also needs to support the beer. I've had a lot of food at breweries that as soon as I eat, the food there, I'm done and I want to leave because I need to go take a nap. So it's just how do you? And beer can be tricky to serve food with because it's heavier than wine and carbonated and stuff like that. But so we're constantly sort of coming up with new things we could do. I want the menu we have right now, I'm super happy with, and I want to sort of let more people experience it and see what works and doesn't work. But, I'm very happy with what we're putting out.
Yeah, so, there's also a lot of really cool, like Chef Fred, great guy, like we'll chat, and he incorporates a lot of brewing ingredients in the menu, which I think is a unique thing to see. It's like there's all kinds of different food programs at breweries, from food truck all the way up to trying to be kind of like the Michelin approach. But it's really cool to be using yeast as part of sauces, to be using beer for marinades, to be using malt to make crackers. Like we're playing with the dessert right now, to include more maltin and also cacao and coffee from local suppliers just right here on the block. So
very, very creative. So the menu, these is kind of your idea, your recipes, your inspiration, Nick, and then you found a kitchen team that can really bring it to life. And again, it looks delicious. The presentation, very handsome, very compelling. I've never seen food quite like this at another brewery, but I have noticed that some of the best breweries I've spoken to, and whether they were brewers or owners, they likewise, they're thinking like a chef. They have a background in hospitality. They're thinking about the experience, the culinary experience that people are going to have both eating and drinking when they come into their tap room. And it's that kind of mentality that seems to make modern day tap rooms thrive. So to the design, to the menu, to of course the beer on the board, all very compelling. Every reason to visit Eckhart.
Credit where credit is due. They're not my recipes. They're I sort of have I want to let them do what they're good at, which is execute and come up with the ideas. I had a sort of guidelines of what I wanted to do, but this is very much Fred and Jared. They're have creative free reign to do what they need to do. So
shout out to.
I can't take credit for that.
Yeah, shout out to Fred, shout out to Jared, and I cannot wait to taste the fruits of their labor someday. I have one more question before we move on to the final kind of lightning round that I like to ask everyone. And I wasn't planning this, but I think it's particularly relevant just since you are a new brewery, since you are opening in 2025. And we've talked about before, kind of the expectation now is clearly different from what was expected from breweries over the last decade plus, right? Did you read that article, the opinion piece in the New York Times recently, The Wacky Labels and Silly Names Are Killing Craft Beer? It's by Mark Robichaud.
I emailed him the same day saying, come out and check us out.
It was funny to see what like a tizzy that caused. I saw a lot of responses online, just it's lazy and it's uninformed, it's dated, it's ill-timed. But I look at the title alone and I'm like, well, you're not wrong. And I think my favorite line from it was that the beer aisle now looks like a merch stand at Comic-Con. He's not wrong. I am wondering if we might need like a new word for craft beer, like to encompass like what you are doing now, what breweries who have opened, whether it was just pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, or are now practicing modern day. Like, does craft still really capture what is happening now among small breweries? Again, I just do you first and foremost, do you think of yourselves as a craft brewery? You're opening up in the name of craft, you're opening up to move craft forward, or is it something else at this point? Because that article was basically saying craft is synonymous with IPA, with hazy, with pastry, and with boozy and with alcohol, and that's kind of the opposite of what every single brewery on this show to date is practicing current day. So, is that part of craft? Is it just the current reality of beer? Or do we need some new word, some new expression for it? And do you have any idea what that would be?
Well, I'll just start
Hot
out.
topic, man.
I'll start out by saying I don't ever want to put down what anyone else is doing. That like my feeling is very much like those things are not what I want to do. And the reason and the reason I'm doing them is because what we're doing is because I like it and I'm committed to it and it's my true expression of what I want to put out there.
Yeah.
And so I don't, on some level, it doesn't matter to me what someone else is doing, like, or whether they're successful or not.
Sure.
And we're, very close to breweries that are very much what he was describing, that are doing very well. So I don't think, of course, that's what he's saying is not completely 100% true in all respects.
Yes.
But I just felt, and all of us feel like there's what we're doing is underserved and should be done more. So we're going to be the people who do that. And I don't profess to be very knowledgeable in terms of marketing, or the industry sort of beyond that, but they both have worked in it a long time, so maybe they can talk to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of what paved the way and I think allowed you to do once again what no one else is supposed to do or is really doing this year, which is open up a brand new brewery, and it's devoted to the loggers. Adam and Justin, I want to hear the same from you. Do you think craft still kind of captures what you're doing? Do you think of yourselves first and foremost as a craft brewery? Is it all beer at this point, or do we need some new words, some new ideas, some new concept for this? I don't want to overcomplicate it or push it too far, but just your thoughts.
You first? Yeah. I mean, man, it's I don't want to be too divisive because I can be with ease. But no, I do love that actually, and I'm going to think very much about this conversation now of a new word, another word for some section of craft beer, where it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, like I identify as a craft brewery or working at a craft brewery. I would call Eckhart a craft brewery. But as the person who does sales and who has been in this a while and drinks a lot of beer, it's tough. Like even in this last week, going out to certain sales calls and speaking with managers that are like at places where I knew they used to have tons of craft beer, and they've all gone back to macro, and they're like, listen, man, it's just between batch and consistency, quality, and cost. This just has not made sense for us to put on our lines anymore.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of getting over the wide-eyed honeymoon period of the extremeness that craft could be and the newness of all these things. When something's new, you're not overly critical. You're just excited that it's new and you want to see this new thing. I mean, I have traveled far and wide and shipped beer across the country to try new things.
Yeah.
But it's like, what's kind of going back to what we do? It's like, what's the intentionality of like, why are you doing this? It's like, if you wanted to open a bakery, would you just open a bakery and call it a bakery and then buy all your bread from Whole Foods and put it in your shelves? And like,
yeah,
what are you doing at that point? And I think that there's a wide range of approach of skill, access to resources, funding, all the various things that can make brewing beer really difficult, even when you have the best of intentions. That a lot of people are facing, especially during this contraction period and getting forced to make tough decisions. So, long story short, yes, we're a craft brewery. Yes, we need another word for craft.
Very well said. And I'm being careful as I speak about this and trying to think about my words, but it's a worthy question because, and Adam, I want you to have the last word on this. Before you do, though, it's also just worth mentioning, like the beers people have been sending me, like you. They're world class, and they are in a whole other class and category than macro lagers. So the point of this show and No Life to Lagers, not to say AB InBev was right all along. For all the arguments we've made for adjunct lagers, for example, the point is not just go back to your macro XYZ or AB, whatever the case may be. I still think a lot of that beer is both the biggest and the worst. Everything I'm drinking now, thanks to you and everyone who's participated in the show, is in its own class. It's in its own category. It is the best of the best, and it deserves a word. I'm just not sure if craft captures that anymore. And it's really interesting to kind of hear the sales standpoint from Justin, what's happening in the market and in the field and the pushback for it, because it's almost starting to carry a negative connotation. So, it might not be craft, but it is definitely not, it's definitely not the big macro producers. Like, it needs its own kind of category. Adam, what do you think about this? As the one brewing the beer, tell us.
I'm just happy to be brewing beer, man. No, I think it's definitely a fair question to ask. I think I would lean on more of the side of, I agree. I think naming it just to craft is maybe a bit tough. As we talked about, like low intervention, like wine is, people know orange wine as being low intervention wine versus, bigger vineyards and things of that nature. Is that the right category as well? I don't necessarily think that's the right way to go either. Mm-hmm. I will say, in terms of craft, captures a very large spectrum, and that's why I think it's done so well, that word. It's the craft of making something. So whether you're crafting a pastry stout with a bunch of lactose, or you're crafting a lambic, or you want to brew beer with the Burton chain cask focus, it's just like, if you're really truly focusing on that craft and you're doing it at an exceptionally high level, I think that is defined as craft, as craftsmanship, which I think is super cool. And that's what draws me to this profession in general. I love the idea of that.
Yes.
So I do think craft does encompass that. However, I do agree. I think it's the idea of that a bunch of people decided that they wanted to brew beer and opened a lot of breweries, which is amazing. But I think at a certain point, you just have so many people doing this all over the shop, and it can only be so consistent across that many breweries,
Yeah.
But I don't think I have the right word for it. I think you're totally right. It could be in different segments where it's just like, hey, we brew lagers in this, and that's kind of focused there. But from a craftsmanship, I think if you're focused, you're doing it at a high level, that's still a good way to, I guess, call it that.
To take a analogy from the food industry, from the restaurant business, like, remember when farm to table meant something, right? Yeah. And it was, again, it was the early people that were doing it. Most of them, there was, you could relate that to what they were doing. And then people started using farm to table to mean, they would just call themselves that, and not be doing the things, right? So I guess the challenge is, right, like, how do you differentiate what you're doing? I think for me, again, to go back to the be in the present moment thing, let's do what we're doing first, and we'll figure out what to call it later. We talked about this with naming beers. I didn't want to have names for beers. It often feels kind of forced. If one of our beers sort of organically has a name because we start calling it a thing, then we can call it that, Like
Yeah.
I sort of feel like Edelstoff is one of those things where like it was just their special beer, and then for whatever reason it got that name. But I don't want to try and force a name on something from the top down.
Nice. Nick, I think very well said, and I like the continued culinary analogy. Adam, very diplomatic. And you're right, the idea of craft is meaningful. It's not the word itself. But Justin, I think you did get to something with this idea of like low intervention wine. I mean, I don't see like low intervention beer ever necessarily like taking off or lighting a fire, but it communicates something closer to what we're all trying to capture here and what we're talking about in this moment. So interesting conversation. We'll see if anyone else has any opinions about it. I want to move on to a few last questions. These are for all of you. These are for any of you. It's something I like to ask everyone before we wrap up. First of all, non-alcoholic beer, just the rise in dialogue and volume around sobriety, around temperance. I know you serve industrial art, safety glasses, pills, and IPA as your non-alcoholic option. That name, I mean, here's to the chief. That name carries a lot of weight, and I'd be really curious to try how they handle non-alcoholic beer. Just tell us some of your thoughts on this. Was it an essential offering for the tap room? How do you feel in the rise of the non-alcoholic category, especially in light of opening a new brewery?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best things about beer is the alcohol. But of course, we have to offer it. If there's someone who doesn't drink who wants to, join their friends, I want to make sure they have an option. Personally, just from a like flavor standpoint, I haven't had any that really do the job flavor wise, even taking the alcohol out of like the equation. Like I haven't had any. They don't do exactly what beer does flavor wise, right? So it was tough for me to find one that I thought, just because I'm not in that position. But absolutely think you need to have that option available. So yeah, and Industrial Arts does a great job. There's a bunch of others that were in contention too. They, but they're local, and everything they do is really solid. So that was how we ended up going with them.
Yeah, yeah. I agree that alcohol adds body and flavor and character, and it's not an additive. It's an essential and integral part of beer. But I appreciate the option. I appreciate the alternative. This kind of leads me to my next question. Yet it's all actually interrelated because I just heard that John Mulaney has his own non-alcoholic. He partnered with Year's Beer, and they released a Pilsner and a Pale Ale and a Belgian, I think. But celebrity lagers, we see a few out in the market right now. We can now count John Mulaney among them, and Charlie Sheen came up in the last episode, and we talked about the Kelsey brothers. We talked about Hulk Hogan. Just tell us your thoughts on this culture, and if you were going to brew a celebrity lager, what does that mean to you? Who, with, and why?
Oh boy, I'll let you guys first. I'll have to think about
this. Oh man, Chapel Rowan.
Oh.
I have a 10-year-old daughter, so
Brewing a celebrity lager with your daughter in mind. I love the gesture. Yeah.
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
Yeah. I'd love to crack a beer with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, okay.
Clint Eastwood, yeah. Anything else or anyone else?
I feel like Vince Vaughn would sell the hell out of a beer.
Oh, well, Vince Vaughn, if you're listening, Eckhart is willing, and you're right. I bet he would. I bet he would.
And I don't know. I'm just a fan, really.
You're a fan of Vince Vaughn.
Open the brand with, but it's a great question.
Too, so.
Yeah,
great question.
Oh yeah, no, good stuff. There's no shortage of celebrities in New York, so something tells me you will have options down the road.
Yeah, I'm gonna be true to myself and say that I really don't like the celebrity whatever culture. Because what is, I mean, I don't know. I would pick George Clooney, but what does George Clooney have to, what does George Clooney say about how good our beer is, right?
Well, he
Uh,
doesn't say much about how good tequila is, so yeah, I
I
agree.
didn't say that. I didn't say that. But that's, yeah, for me, like, I guess it would have to be, and I can't think of the person right now, but it would have to
Yeah,
be someone who communicates, that that level of quality, attention to quality, not just a big following. So
agreed.
I know
We
that's,
will,
but
yeah, we will
hey,
say Meister Eckhart is the star of this show and the celebrity behind all your lagers. Decoction mashing, maybe first and foremost for Adam. I already know the answer is yes, but another kind of hot button topic in the beer industry in recent years. So I always like to put everyone on the spot and say yes or no in a single word, but maybe you can also tell me why in a single sentence. So yes or no to decoction mashing, and if I know the answer is yes, why is that from a historical standpoint, from a sensory standpoint? Why did you build a new brew house meant for decoction mashing?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, definitely on team yes. But also, I mean, I understand that every brewery has their own setups and uh, challenges and also benefits. But I think great beers and great lagers are being made on either end. I personally do just love decoction brewing. It's a super fun part of the brewing process, one, but I also think it adds an incredibly cool element to the beer as well. So I would definitely say I support it. Um, I would say, yeah, I mean, especially when we're dealing with lower ABV beers, what we talked about earlier is low ABV, but still full bodied and very robust beers. And I think decoction plays a really huge role in creating those elements. So whether that's Jack Pale at 4.2%, that's a very light beer and it expresses incredibly full and very malt forward. And I think a decoction plays a huge role in that. We don't mess around too much with multiple decoctions. We actually like playing around with the length of said decoction. And that's actually been a really fun thing to see, a 5-minute decoction versus a 40-minute decoction and what that really does to that beer.
Yeah.
I would say just honestly, just like whole leaf hops and what we said before, multiple things coming together all to make this beer, decoction just adds this other extra background profile that I truly just don't get in an undecocted beer like our German Pilsner.
Hmm.
I usually get it in the foam. There's just this really unique malt expression that also plays well with hops that comes off as malty, but it's rustic and husk like in a very positive way. I mean, we're exploding grain and we're boiling it. So, a lot of other things are happening there. And I think that flavor really comes through the husk and um, that profile of that malt really, yeah, happens when you boil it. So that's why I really am pro decoction.
I'm sold. Rustic, husk-like, but not tannic, and there aren't many other
Exactly.
ways to achieve that. So it has been a resounding yes when I think back upon, I guess, 19 episodes to date. But there's the occasional no and the occasional maybe, and often depends. Anything else about decoction mashing from you, Nick, or from you, Justin, before we wrap up?
I was ready to, if it didn't make a difference, to say we don't need to do it. But it makes to us, and we can tell the difference.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Czech Pale is a perfect example of that. It gets a nice long decoction. It's got very few other things to interfere with that. In terms of specialty malt, it's a pretty just pure expression of malt, and it is. I've I've always wanted a beer to taste as much like the brew house smells when you're brewing. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
beer, when you drink that beer, that's what it's. You're getting like hints of that super fresh grain quality that's in that finished beer, and that's amazing.
Sold, and truly one of my favorite smells on earth. So thank you for sharing. And is there anything else you want to say to beer drinkers out there? Anything else you want to say to someone who's pondering their first beer at 21, considering their last beer at 101, deciding whether or not to get on the L train tonight? What do you want to leave our listeners with and say about Eckhart for the year ahead and hopefully many years ahead?
Yeah, come and leave some time to sit and enjoy it and just be here. Bring some friends. I mean, it's the the highlight of the experience for me of going to European beer halls is that it's a social activity, and you're in it to be with the people you're with. And the beer, what I love is they don't get precious. They take their beer very seriously, but they don't get precious about it. These beers are not supposed to blow your mind unless that's what you want to get out of them, in which case, I think we're doing a really good job, in putting some unique beer out, but it's supposed to play a supporting role there. And, that goes to ABV too, like sit and for 3 hours and have however many beers that is. And you can still walk home in a straight line,
Yeah.
feel okay the next morning, so that's sort of my last word, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. And same for you, Justin. Same for you, Adam. Whether new beer drinkers, current beer drinkers, seasoned beer drinkers, what do you want to say to our audience and leave them with?
Well, I'll go so Adam can have the last word. So to the new beer drinkers, to you 21-year-olds, please drink beer.
Again, straight to the point. I love it.
Just do it. I love wellness. I love health. Having a couple of ABV lagers ain't going to kill you, so come on over to Eckhart and do it. If you're 101 and it's your last beer, get some Utopia, man. Drink the biggest beer you possibly can.
Oh, fair
But
enough.
otherwise, yeah, young people, we're not your enemies.
Yeah, not your enemy. What about you, Adam? What do you say?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, I love the ritual of drinking a beer, and I love the ritual of people coming together to enjoy that at the same time. So I would say I don't see that ever going away, and I hope it stays strong. Love foam. When you get your beer, look at it for a second, take it in, think about how much work went into it, whoever brewed it, and just really appreciate it. Sniff it, get a little bit of foam first, and then take that first sip. That's my best advice.
Love it. Sniff it. Get a little bit of foam first. I love it. It's so good to get to know the newest brewery in New York City. And thank you all, Nick, Adam, Justin, for taking a bet on lager beer. And I hope and truly believe it's going to pay dividends. So if you like what you're hearing, by all means, like, subscribe, follow No Life Till Lager. Help us hit the road and make a better kind of beer show. Help me get back home to New York City. And until we get to where we're going, I will say good night and good lager. Eckhart Beer, thank you so very much. I'm all done, so I'm going to have to get another and make a day of it. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks so much, man.
Thanks.
No life till life.